Hey there, today we're going to use the pattern that's shown in the Song of Songs chapter 1 verse 8 to give us some insight into two keys that when established in our lives will bring a profoundly rich and rewarding way of living. So first we're going to see that healing and confidence come from the revelation that we're beautiful regardless of our circumstances. And secondly, we're going to discover an instruction to position people in our lives who know God. When we follow this instruction, we move ourselves into a powerful position that aligns ourselves with the plans that God has for our lives. So from our scripture we read, "If you do not know, most beautiful of women, follow the tracks of the sheep and gaze your young goats by the tents of the shepherds." To start today, we're going to look at the sequence that's actually found in this verse. This verse follows on from verse 7 where the main character asks a question. But what we need to see here is that before the answer, or we might say the resolution or the solution is actually given, there's a statement made first about beauty. And this intrigues me because I believe there's an intentional strategy at work here. And so to demonstrate, I'm going to share a couple of examples of this same principle at work. Starting with my son, a story about my son who's got a special relationship with the surgeon, Dr. David Chong. You see, at the time that our firstborn Toby was 20 weeks gestation, Gary and I were made aware of some of the challenges that were going to lie ahead for him, including that he would be born with a cleft lip and palate. As a result of this news, prior to Toby's birth, I had travelled into the Royal Children's Hospital and I met with David, who was to become Toby's surgeon. And 11 years and a number of surgeries later, there is a really special bond that Toby shares with this man who's partnered with God to help create our son Toby's smile. Now, David's a man who knows that the mission of God belongs in the hands of ordinary people. And in a 2019 UK article by Sorted magazine, the journalist Georgina Ainsworth interviewed our surgeon David, who at times travels on a hospital mercy ship to deliver medical resources and assistance to the forgotten poor. And David shares with Georgina in this article a story. And this is what he says. As a Congolese refugee, she arrived in Cameroon with no money, no company, and no hope. A craniofacial deformity should have seen her die years prior, and those around her treated her as if she was nothing. When I first met her, she wouldn't even look me in the eye, recalls David. He soon realised that her scars from being rejected had caused as much internal damage and pain as her condition. The amount of love that the ship showed her was incredible. The power of her being loved was far greater than any surgery we could have given her. It's not just the physical we heal on the ship, we also free them from their emotional pain, and he says he loves that. This story communicates the same sequence found in our verse today, that emotional pain like rejection, judgment, and shame are first addressed by love. Another example of this same principle came from a therapist who recently told me that in our relationships, when things are strained, before we move forward to address resolution of an issue, we do well to first settle the emotion. We don't ignore the emotion, hoping it'll go away as we find resolution to the issue. Rather that we face the emotion, we speak to it, we settle it, and then we move towards resolution. So if we go back to our verse, we know from the keys that we've unlocked in verses 5, 6, and 7 that our main character representing us has reached a number of pressure points, and she's aware of areas in her life that seem unlovable. She's compared herself to others, she's found herself lacking, she's experienced anger directed from those who should be caring for her, she hasn't protected her own intimacy, and she's found herself disconnected and feeling lost. And here at this point, we might assume that a correction or even an answer to her question would be the best way forward. But actually first we see that her heart is reassured with a strategic declaration of love, and this comes through the lens of beauty. Our main character is declared to be the most beautiful of all, regardless of the circumstances that she finds herself in. Now, in the Garden of Eden, we see mankind withdraws and hides himself as a result of shame. But here we see an affirmation that carries a clear message of love and beauty and can settle these emotions and restore the confidence to the benefit of the relationship and of personal growth and of intimacy. Now, if we take a moment to consider the world's view of beauty, we can see a distorted and corrupted message. And I'm a pictures person. So to me, when this happens in the natural, in my head, it's like God has taken a spiritual highlighter and marked it for my attention. What is it about beauty that the enemy of God does not want us to understand? Why is he going to such great lengths to distort and confuse mankind on this particular topic? And when we explore true beauty, we don't actually find the superficial. Instead, we discover a deep wellspring and an invitation. Not only does beauty lead us on an exploration of kingdom treasures that bring healing and restoration to our heart, but beauty leads us towards something about the nature of God that is beyond our ability to see it in the natural, something that is so worthy of worship and adoration. And this sounds like something that God's enemy would want to sabotage. Now we're going to step aside to our second key. Last week we discovered our heart's cry to love God and love others, intimacy, fellowship woven into our being so that we connect with the intention of God for our lives. The first and second commandments are not a carrot on a stick used by a God who teases us with something that's always outside of our reach. That's not true to the character of God. Nor are commandments meant to be areas of guilt and condemnation because we just can't achieve them no matter how hard we try. Rather, these are two special kingdom principles, the royal laws, that can be considered promises to us. This is what God is doing in us. He's crafting and shaping and forming our hearts in this direction as we follow his voice. So in this verse, we see a really lovely pattern. The main character who represents us is given a clear instruction when she finds herself experiencing seasons that bring up these unpleasant heart emotions like comparison, judgment, shame, rejection, offense, isolation, disconnection, and withdrawal. Rather than follow the natural instinct to withdraw and isolate, the instruction is to follow the tracks of the sheep who know the path to the shepherd's tent. In my own words, go and find yourself some shepherd's voice listeners. No matter what circumstances you may be facing today, if you don't have people who know God's voice and who follow it already positioned in place, then go and position these people. These people, even if they're church leadership, they won't be perfect, but they will be a part of the work that God is doing in you and through you. And if you follow the well-worn path of people who know God, you're going to find yourself in the presence of the shepherd. So each time when we meet to look at a verse, I'm going to include an activation for your day or the coming week. Today, I'd like to invite you to take a moment to allow this emotional reassurance to kiss your heart no matter what season you find yourself in. You are most beautiful. I wonder if you're willing to receive this. I believe that the Lord wants me to read to you today from Psalm 32, verse 7 to 9, and I'm going to read from the Passion Translation. We read, "Lord, you are my secret hiding place, protecting me from these troubles, surrounding me with songs of gladness. Your joyous shouts of rescue release my breakthrough. I hear the Lord saying, I will stay close to you, instructing and guiding you along the pathway for your life. I will advise you along the way and lead you forth with my eyes as your guide. Don't make it difficult. Don't be stubborn when I take you where you've not been before. Don't make me tug you and pull you along. Just come with me." In addition today, as we consider the power of beauty, I invite you to explore being beautiful today. Think about how you might express this in your own life. Try setting aside any preconceived judgment of what you might think is superficial and instead consider something that you might do to encourage an emotion to rise up in you attached to being beautiful. For example, wear something that makes you feel great, or pick yourself some flowers, or sit down and write a card to someone else. Maybe you need to go for a walk and enjoy the beauty of the natural environment, choosing to agree that the God of all the natural beauty in the world didn't make a mistake when he included you with your own unique colorings and features. Maybe you need a bath with some beautiful fragrances. I'd just love to hear what you choose to do in response to this invitation today. In conclusion, I believe that your hurts are valid. that you don't need to push them down or push through them, but rather you can instead experience a revelation that these emotions don't disqualify you from all that God has for you and feels for you, that He finds you just as beautiful in this place as He does when you're thriving and flourishing, and that this acceptance will restore your confidence. I believe that you're about to receive a revelation of beauty that will help to give you a vision and a perspective that will transform your future. I believe that fellowship with others who love Jesus are a powerful part of God's plan for you, and that by taking steps into key relationships with those who follow Jesus, you will discover a valuable resource that will position you for the plans that God has for your life. And that as you learn to follow in the footsteps of those who know Jesus, you will find yourself in the presence of the shepherd who will surround you, protect you, nourish you, give you rest while delighting over you with songs of great gladness and joy. My further reading suggestions today are the Song of Songs, chapter 1, verse 8, Psalm 32, 7 to 9, Psalm 139, verse 16 and 17, and Ephesians 3, verse 18 to 20. And I would encourage you to read all of those from the Passion Translation this week. My song suggestion for this week can also be found in the video description, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can click the song found on the left-hand side of the screen. See you next time.